Hello, my name is Startup Survival, and I'm preparing for a super volcano. I just wanted to make a quick video because back in February I was contacted by the show Doomsday Preppers. Some dude named Brooklyn Bagwell, great name by the way, emailed me through my YouTube channel and said that they were doing some scouting for season 4. They had discovered my channel through the course of their research, and they wanted to just reach out and see if I might be interested. It wasn't a sure thing. It was basically fill out a questionnaire and we'll consider you for the show. So I took it as a huge compliment actually, and I was I had a hard time deciding what to do about that. Part of me wanted to go for it because it's an opportunity, and the other part said maybe not. And I'll get into the reason why I decided not to do it. But what I thought would be a cool thing to do for a video would be just to answer the questions so you guys could see what they ask people when they're scouting them for the show. So in the beginning it sort of asks for some personal information, your name, your age, your address, and obviously I'm not going to give that. But I'll start answering the questions that I can answer. What kind of area do you live in? I live in downtown Vancouver. It's a very dense neighborhood called the West End. Lots of apartments, really beautiful neighborhood actually. There's lots of parks here, nice waterfront. I'm really close to Stanley Park, which is a huge urban park, very beautiful. So yeah, that's where I live. How many acres do you have? 0, because I rent. Do you have any livestock or a garden? No, again, because I rent and I live in an apartment. When did you start prepping and why? Probably about 2 years ago. And I don't have a specific reason why, but I guess I just want to feel more self-reliant and self-sufficient, and because I'm aware of how vulnerable life is and that anything that could go wrong will go wrong, so I want to be ready for if and when that does happen. Did you experience a disaster that started your prepping? If so, tell me about it. I have experienced disasters, but that's not the reason I prep. It may factor into it in some minute capacity. So I did experience 2 disasters that I think are noteworthy. The first was in 2003. I was back in Ontario, university student at the time, and we experienced the northeastern power outage. And the power was off for probably like 3 days or something like that. Kind of a memorable experience. All I remember about it was trying to go to a restaurant at nighttime. All the lights were off, and we found a place that was open. They were cooking with like gas and backup power. They had candles out, but you had to have cash because the debit and the credit machines were not working. So that's all I remember about that. The other thing I experienced was flooding when I lived in Oxford in the UK. I worked there for a little while after school, and I was living close to the river. It's called the Thames River, the same one that goes through London, and it flooded. This was back in 2007, I guess, and the power was off at the place I was living. The street flooded, kind of sketchy. Got phone calls that said we might have to evacuate. They didn't force us to, but I chose to. I went and stayed with a friend who lived up at higher elevation in the city and kind of got around it. Was there ever a time you felt unprepared that inspired you to start? Yeah. I guess I've always been sort of a independent, self-reliant person, and the decision to start making preparations was just an extension of that, I would say. It's not a result of like one single situation. It was an evolution that was very gradual, and yeah, that's about it. What kind of security or defense training do you have? None. Were you in the military? No. How self-sufficient are you? Well, that's a subjective question. I can only answer it from my own perspective. Other people might think completely differently. But I think I'm more self-sufficient than the average person by virtue of the fact that I actually think about this stuff and have made some preparations in that regard. On the full spectrum of being prepared, probably not very good actually. Like there's a lot of people out there that have more stuff stocked than I do, and they know a lot more than I do. So I'm better than average, but not super duper prepper person here. Startup prepper. How long will your food storage last, and what kinds of food do you store? I actually have a video about that. I'd say I have probably a month's worth of food, eating fairly normally at about 2,000 calories a day. I could probably ration that and stretch it out. You know, you can reduce those calories to 1,500, 1,000, whatever, and make it last longer. So at least a month. What kind of foods do I have? Some like freeze-dried stuff, like I've got pasta, rice, some canned meat, canned fruits and vegetables. I've got like fats, carbs, proteins, a good variety of stuff. Not super awesome, but I've got a video about it. You can learn more there if you want to. Do you store water? How much? And do you have water filters? Yes, I do store water. I have about 70 liters in total stored. That's probably realistically enough to last for maybe a month at best. I do have means of acquiring more fresh water if I need to. And I do have a LifeStraw water filter, but I also have other means of disinfecting water. I did have a water filter. I bought a Katadyn Hiker Pro last year. And I tried it out, and it just was not operating correctly. There was still sediment in the water after it was filtered. I took it back to the store, and that kind of soured me on semi-expensive water filters. Probably something I should look at. What kind of alternative energy do you have and or store? Well, I have some batteries, some candles, and that's about it. I don't have heating fuel stored. I don't have like solar energy or anything like that. If the power goes off, I'm pretty much in the dark except for my flashlights and candles. Yeah, that's about that. How many and what kinds of weapons or ammo do you have stored? Well, I'm assuming that this question is more about firearms than anything else. I do have, as for non-firearm things, I'll cover that first. I've got a baseball bat. I've got a bunch of knives, like folding knives and fixed blades. I've got some bear spray, and that's probably about it. As for firearms, if you had asked me this question a month or longer ago, I would have said nada. But very recently I got a Ruger 1022 semi-auto rifle. I've got about 1,000 rounds of ammo stored, planning to increase that. Probably will be buying more guns in the future, but stay tuned. Do you have a bug out location, and if so, how far away is it from your home? Is it underground? No, I don't have a bug out location. I don't own a property yet, and if I do, I'm going to buy a property for me to live in, not to bug out to. If I end up having tons of money in the future, I would love to buy like a cottage or something like that, maybe an hour or two away that would be ideal for bugging out, but that's a very long-term plan, let's say. And it won't be underground. Do you have a bug out vehicle? If so, what kind? No, I don't have a bug out vehicle. I actually don't own a car at all. I do drive, and I just rent cars occasionally as I need them. I have a bicycle though. It's a good bike. I could probably, get out of town quickly on that if I had to. And the good thing is it doesn't require fuel, except for human fuel. Do you stockpile medical equipment, radiation equipment? If so, what kinds? I do have some first aid capabilities, and more importantly, I have some training on how to use them. Not extensive training, mind you, but I guess I'm above average in terms of that capabilities and knowledge, but it's definitely an area that I could increase a lot, so I'm not happy with that area of my preparation at all. Radiation equipment, no. Is there anything else you're stockpiling that you have not mentioned above? Well, TP, toilet paper, I think that's pretty important because it's something we need every day. I try to keep like 224 cases available at all times. I also store like soap and toothpaste and that sort of thing because I like to be clean. I guess that's about it really. There's probably some other stuff that I haven't. Oh yeah, books. I've got some books about like survival and bushcraft and that sort of thing that are good resources. Maybe some maps for navigation. Okay, what has been the most difficult adjustment for you to become a prepper? I would say cost and just mental activity. And what I mean by that is the gear that I've had to buy, or chosen to buy is a better way to put it. It costs money, right? Like you have to work hard, at least I work hard for my money, and sacrificing that for non-fun things can be, it's a sacrifice, right? So that's a bit of a sacrifice, I guess. Also, just mentally, it's an adjustment, right? To go from a state where you were not concerned about the vulnerability of life to suddenly saying, hey, life is fragile and I'm responsible for my own safety. It's a transition mentally, and trying to like explain that to family and friends can be challenging because people naturally want to believe easy things and that they're safe and the world's a good place and stuff. they don't want to face hard realities. So just talking to people, I would say, is kind of a challenge as well, but it's all good. Is there a goal you are hoping to reach with your preparations, and what's the next step? I don't really have a destination in mind, I guess. If I was to picture one, I would say reaching complete self-sufficiency. Like, wouldn't it be great if we lived off the grid and we were not dependent on people to produce our food for us, give us clean water? What if you could do it all by yourself, you know, and you lived in a homestead or something like that? I think that would be pretty awesome, and I guess that's a goal. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I hope so. The next step, the next step is food acquisition. That's where my energy is focused these days. I am interested in fishing and also hunting down the road. I got to learn how to shoot first. So I guess that's where I'm putting the bulk of my energy this season anyways. Is there anything unique about your prepping? I would say most preppers probably invest very heavily in weapons and ammunition. That's a very small part of my preparations, I suppose. So I guess that makes me unique. I don't know. Do you have any prepper do-it-yourself tips or expertise to share? Not really. I'm not an expert prepper, right? Like, I'm a kind of a startup person. But what I would say is don't invest too heavily in one particular area. You know, I really got interested in knife collecting, for example, and I have way too many folding knives. You know, the average price of those knives, maybe 75 bucks, whatever. But if you're going to spend 100 bucks on another folding knife, another paramilitary too, or whatever, and you truly consider yourself to be a prepared individual, you might want to ask yourself, hey, look at your system objectively, and is there an area where you're deficient? Like, maybe you need more stored food or stored water. Maybe that money would be better spent in that area, or invest in some training or something like that. So my advice would be to balance it out and look at your system objectively and invest where you need to, not on just like fun stuff that you already have. What disaster are you prepping for? Okay, so I'm not preparing for a specific disaster, and that's one of the main criticisms I would have about the show. I think that anyone who prepares for only one disaster is subject to failure. I think that it's better to prepare for general principles of survival: shelter, food, water, safety. You know what I mean? Like, those apply in any disaster situation, a flood, an earthquake, whatever. If you've got your core body temperature is maintained, you've got water, you've got food, you've got shelter, you're going to survive. It doesn't matter what the disaster is. Maybe like a nuclear warfare or something, it doesn't matter, but we're talking about things that we can control, right? So I'm not preparing for anything specific. That being said, depending on where you live, there are threats that are more likely than others. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I am on the Pacific Ring of Fire. So an earthquake is somewhat likely, I would say. Vancouver hasn't had a major earthquake ever, as far as I know, maybe like hundreds of years ago or something, but they say that we're due because we're on the same fault line as California and, you know, all those places. So we are due for an earthquake that is likely to happen. Another thing I would say is flooding is a possibility. I live pretty close to sea level, so if sea levels rise, we could see that happen as well. Another thing is economic collapse. When I do watch the show, I have watched Doomsday Preppers before. I don't make it a habit, but I've checked it out. I have noticed that that's a pretty frequent reason that people give, and I pretty much agree with that, because I think that there's way too much debt in the world. We've devalued the currency to the point where, to some people, it doesn't mean anything at all. It's just paper. We unlinked it from gold. So it only has power because we believe it does. And if people lose faith in the system for whatever reason, it will collapse. And I think that the economy is cyclical, so we go through growth and decline periods, and the growth periods seem to be getting smaller and smaller. Like, technically we're in growth right now, but it doesn't really feel like it. We just went through a huge recession. We're bound to go through another one. You know, 2 years from now, 5 years, I don't know. But there will be another recession. And given the fact that we barely recovered from the last one, I think the next one will be worse. And who knows if that will be the one to trigger a collapse or not. But I do think it will come eventually. So I guess those are the things that I'm preparing for, or the threats that I consider most likely. If I lived in the desert or something like that, or like an area prone to forest fires, that would probably dictate my efforts a little bit more. But I think you have to look at where you live and look at things objectively. Yeah, that's pretty much the end of the survey. I hope you guys found it interesting. I didn't do it because I want to be on the show. Let me just talk about why I chose not to go for it. I was conflicted, obviously, because it's an opportunity. I'm on YouTube for a reason. I do have a message, and I really appreciate everybody who's came along and listened to that message. It makes me feel really good. But to be on the show, I think you have to reveal a lot of private details about your life, and you lose control of what you're willing to share. Now the show decides how much you share, not you. And I also think that this show, Doomsday Preppers in particular, it's reality TV, which probably means it's not all that real. It's heavily produced, and I think that they try to get extreme people preparing for extreme things, and lots of weapons, and they just make the people look crazy, honestly. Maybe they are crazy, I don't know. It's like a parody of prepping, honestly. Like, there's no common sense preppers on there that just say, hey man, like, life is unpredictable, I want to be ready for stuff. It wouldn't be an interesting show if they did that. No, we have to get, tactical, what's his name, with an arsenal in his van, preparing for the end of the world or something. It's like, I don't know, I don't like it personally. Anyways, that's sort of my thoughts on the show. Just thought I would share that with you guys and see what you thought.